Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Today I'm going to talk about loneliness. Most of us think that when we feel lonely, we want to stop feeling lonely. And that's only partially true. So how many people here feel some level of loneliness most of the time? Raise your hands. How many people here have loneliness as a regular feature of your life? How many people here feel lonely only now and then? You never feel lonely? Cool. For the record, only one person feels that they never feel lonely. No, that's true. I'm not saying that's good.
No, I mean, I wasn't always like that. It took me a long time. But once I got to that place, it's like a freedom.
Yeah.
You feel lonely being the only one?
No, I never feel lonely either. There's two of us. But for most of my life, all of my life, until I was deep into my practice, I felt lonely all the time. And as I've described before, I felt many periods of time where that loneliness was just like this searing pain. The difference, I think, for me was that I understood that there wasn't anything in my immediate environment that was going to make that loneliness go away. So I never tried to satisfy that loneliness or get rid of it by hanging out with people or getting a pet or something like that. In fact, it seemed to me that the loneliness that I was feeling there was some other answer to it, and that trying to fix it with these ordinary things that people try to fix loneliness with would only make it worse. That's how I felt, from a very young age. Just had that instinct. So in this tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, our loneliness comes from the experience that we have of being separate. We are having an experience of being objects in space, basically. And this experience of being objects in space is called Anava Mala, A-N-A-V-A Mala. Anava Mala. It means our root sense of separation. In the tradition, Anava Mala is often translated as our root experience or our root ignorance. So the most basic ignorance that we have is our conceptual belief or our embodied concept that we're objects in space and that there is something between us and other beings and other things. What erodes that, the only thing that can answer that really, the only thing that can be something other than a temporary bandage or a temporary amelioration, is to discover our continuity with everything. When we discover our continuity with everything, not just in a conceptual way, but in a real way, an experiential way, where we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are not objects in space, then that root sense of separation goes away. And that's the only thing that really ends loneliness. This is something I never anticipated when I started doing spiritual practice. I was not doing it to ameliorate loneliness. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about, I want to know what this reality is. I was always driven by a desire to know what is really going on here. That was my primary motivation for practice, not to get rid of a pain. My pain was I felt there's so much more here and I don't know about it, and that sucks. I'm upset. Why do I have to be so limited in my understanding and experience? But without me thinking about it or trying to do anything about it other than doing my sadhana every day, sometime that loneliness just went away. I don't really know when that was. I mean, I don't know if it happened slowly or all at once. I really don't know. But, one day I just realized, oh, that is now gone, right? So in the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, that would mean that the karma of Navamala had unwound, it had resolved. And that came about through definite, concrete experiences of my continuity with everything, of definite, concrete experiences of the continuity of everything. That even though, at the time that experience was not continuous, I couldn't hold on to it all the time. I still had times when I felt separate, but it was enough, and it was so convincing that I no longer was embodying a Navamala, right? So I no longer have that possibility of feeling that loneliness. Now, that doesn't mean that the fullness of that fact of our continuity is something that I'm embodying. I'm not embodying that. What happens is, as you go along in practice, you understand more about reality, you embody more of the fullness of existence, but then you also get to see how much more there is. Things you never even imagined, right? So I am not embodying that in its entirety. However, the loneliness has gone away. And now I'm able to understand other things about it. And now one of the things I understand is that it's not that we just want to get rid of that feeling of separation, or that we want to get rid of that feeling of loneliness, even though we might say that. We actually are afraid, greatly afraid, of the degree of intimacy with everything that arises when that feeling of separation dissolves. We have all kinds of ways that we avoid having to be pierced by that experience of intimacy. At every stage along the way of waking up, our senses expand. Or let's just say that we stop identifying with our limited senses and we identify more with the senses of God. It's not really that our individual senses expand. There is no such thing as an individual sense. It's our sense of individuality starts to erode, and so we begin to be able to make use of more of the senses of everything. And at every stage of waking up, we can experience that an opening as rather intense and piercing, because we're not used to it. It's like as if the lights were turned down in a room, and then suddenly you turn the light on, and your eyes would have to readjust, right? It's the same thing with waking up. At different stages, you have to recalibrate. You have to go through a period of discomfort with the new way that you're experiencing things in the world, and then eventually you recalibrate and it becomes more ordinary. It just becomes the way things are, right? And you're able to host that. So when we begin to go deeper and deeper into this experience of intimacy with everything, there's many, many levels of recalibration that happen. And we are more like elephants or other animals that have been caged for a long time, kept in captivity. And then when they get taken to some beautiful outdoor preserve where they can roam freely, they hide in their cages for a while. It's very upsetting and anxiety-provoking for an animal that's been caged for a long time to come directly out into an open field. They have to do it really slowly over some days or even longer, right? So we're more like that. And what have we done with our cages? We have decorated our cages. We have made our cages very attractive. What have we decorated our cages with? We have decorated our cages with our feeling of superiority, whether that is intellectual superiority or physical superiority or some other form of superiority that we have become attached to, some story about ourselves. We have decorated our cages with our constant anger at other people. We have decorated our cages with our nostalgia and with our sadness. We have decorated our cages with all of our ideas about ourselves and other people that we are using to create some kind of habitable life within that cage, to create some sort of meaning for ourselves. And every time we enjoy those things, when we enjoy our feeling of chronic sadness, when we're in the midst of enjoying our anger and criticism of other people, when we're in the midst of enjoying our stories about our superiority of some form or another, when we're in the midst of enjoying whatever story we're attached to about ourselves, our story of being capable or incapable, it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever story it is that we're attached to about ourselves, when we are in the midst of that story, of enacting it and embodying it, we are experiencing a lessening of our ability to be intimate. When we are wrapped up in that, we are lowering our ability to be intimate. We are reinforcing a navamala. We are lessening the quality of livingness in relationship to our world. We are shutting down our senses. And we are doing that on purpose because we haven't yet learned to tolerate intimacy with light, with nature, with other people, with circumstances. It's not just other people, just with sensory input in general. So in a sense, it doesn't really matter what it is that we're doing. It doesn't really matter the content. It doesn't really matter whether our minds are full of anger and criticism, or whether our minds are full of sadness and nostalgia, or whether our minds are full of stories about us being better than other people, or whether our minds are full of stories about being persecuted, or whether our minds are full of stories about how we are incapable or how we are very capable. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point of all of that is to protect us, to protect us from openness, to protect us from that piercing quality of intimacy with all of this. So oftentimes I was actually inspired to give this talk from being with students who I just watch them going through this. I just watch people, they're relating to me, but they're not really there. They're on autopilot. They think they're there, and they think they're getting away with something, but they're not. You're not getting away with anything. You're just in a transparent wall performing this act of supposed relating when you're not really relating. And it's very, very obvious when it's happening. And then there you are being very lonely, doing your thing, trying to make yourself feel better, trying to feel like you're capable, like you're getting through, like you're being real, you're being there, and you're not. So this is what we do. Really, we spend too much time analyzing the specific story that we're telling or the specific quality of emotion that we're having. And, it's important to understand something about that. But what's more important is to get in touch with our fear of actually being there and being intimate and being open. Being open, not meaning like confessional. I mean just being there, porous. Giving and receiving, being porous to reality. Letting impressions come in, responding to them on the spot without any premeditation. That's how intimacy really feels. So we often think of openness as something, somehow like I have to tell you something. Right? You don't have to say anything. In fact, it would be better if you just shut up. One of the biggest stumbling blocks to sadhana, to waking up, is the attachment to feeling capable. The attachment to feeling like you are skilled and in control. That is a huge obstacle. Because you have to be able to let go and bumble around and be in a state of don't know. And be in that state of freshness, of discovery, of adventure, of putting your foot in new territory. When we're always trying to prove that we're capable, knowledgeable, and in control, we are stale. Our whole experience is stale. Now, that isn't to say that we might not be capable and that we might not be skillful. That's different. I'm always talking about being attached to those things, not those things in and of themselves. It's fine to be capable. It's fine to be excellent at something. That's good. But to be performing that and scrambling to cobble together that experience out of nothing in order to protect yourself. Everything you do has a feeling of staleness and a rote quality and a brittle quality and a lack of intimacy. And then you can't realize when you're doing that. You have to be willing to step off the edge of your competency and be floundering around and be awkward and make mistakes. Be emotionally messy. When you get further along in the journey of waking up, you realize you are not getting away with anything. Who do you think you're fooling? You might fool your teacher now and then, but you cannot fool the Supreme Self. You have no idea what it looks like, what it is like to watch people going through the paces of their fixations and simply creating a Navamala right in front of me, digging yourselves in deeper, thinking that you're getting away with it. You're not. You're just creating suffering right then and there. A Navamala is the knot that seems to be being woven constantly. Constantly is being made, that knot. And it's being made because most of the time you refuse to walk out of the cage into a situation of greater immediacy. So we spend some time in this tradition talking about the realms and different kinds of realm fixations. Different patterns of emotional fixation. And I really think that on some level it's important to forget that and to realize that every realm fixation is a defense against intimacy, against immediacy. Because it takes courage and a willingness to go through discomfort and feeling like you're not in control to go through that recalibration of what it takes to walk into greater intimacy. Right? So how long are you elephants going to stay in that cage? Is the question. I'm still going through that process too. But I understand the process more now because I've been through it so many times. It's not really as a mystery to me like it was before. Recently I was talking with some students about some deepening in my practice and what might happen to some aspects of my sense of humor. Which my sense of humor is very urban and relies a lot on being snarky about different cultural habits and And part of it is I just love the snarkiness that involves a certain play of language that I really appreciate. Playing with language. Whatevs. But what if that went away? It's funny to contemplate what life would be like for us if our favorite emotional habits just went away. Like, well, where would we be? We'd feel empty-handed. Right? It's that feeling of empty-handedness that we have to allow ourselves to feel. What if you just weren't angry anymore? What if you just forgot about what happened when you were 2 and just stopped being sad and reliving that all the time? You would feel empty-handed. Well, the truth is that you can't reach out and touch things if your hands are full of all that crap. You have to be empty-handed. So that's the end of my talk for today. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.